Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. It's the end of May, the end of another Use Me Up month. Started the month with these 6 pens. Some of them ran out of ink fairly quickly, so I brought others in. Join me now down on the mat. We'll take a look at these 6 pens and I'll give them a ranking of how I thought they were performing during the month. Then I'll briefly discuss the other pens that I brought in. Welcome down to the table. So here we've got the notepad. This is Oxford Optic paper. This is really nice paper. It's 90 GSM paper. Really nice, fountain pen friendly. And here we've got the list of pens that I started the month with. And it was the Use Me Up month. Let me just move this up. I'm trying a different camera angle today so we can actually get all of them in view rather than just being able to see like 3 or 4 of them. So how did I go with this month's pens and how did I rank them? So I'm going to fetch them out from position 6 to position number 1. I'm not trying to say these are bad pens. They're not. They're all very, very nice pens. I really enjoy using them. But I'd like to try and rank them in how I've got on, mainly based on how I've got on this month. Obviously, if I've had issues or really good time with it prior, that does come in a little bit. Position number 6, that goes to the PenBBS 323. Love this gorgeous brown colour. It's like I want to say like a cappuccino type colour. Very nice. It's an aluminium pen. It's a metal pen. Doesn't feel overly heavy. Nice and light. I like the way that we've got this undulation. So we're going up, then we're coming down again, and up, down, then finally up again to the end. In one respect, it does remind me a little bit of a fish. And then at each end, we've got a little pointed end piece there. The cap unscrews, that reveals the nib. This is an extra fine nib. It's one of the things that actually lets this pen down for me. I know it's personal preference. I do like broader nibs. This writes perfectly well. You can see here, writes really nicely. And I think the ink was a good match, this dominant industry Lungo. Cartridge converter. It's aluminium, not really something that you're going to really be able to do anything about in terms of eyedropping. Very, very nice fit in my hand, unposted. Doesn't really post. Yes, it'll go on, but hopefully you can hear that. Yeah, I'll fetch up to the mic. Wobbles around a lot and falls straight off, so not really something to post either. I still enjoyed it though. It's still nice. But compared to the rest of the pens for this month, I had to rank it, and it's mainly due to the nib, to be honest. That's going to go in at position number 6. In the future, what I'm toying with is changing a nib. I've got a Yoho broad nib I might put on there. I've even got a Kaigaloo long knife, which might be worth trying. So that was the PenBBS 323. Position number 5, I've decided we'll go to the Jinhao X159. Again, it's another really nice writing pen. Really enjoy it. It's a nice chunky size. One of the things, and this is just a very personal thing, it is quite light. Whereas the Jinhao 159, which looks virtually identical, is a lot heavier with it being made from metal. So it's the lightness is one of the things I don't like. Very nice wide pen, very comfortable to hold. Works really well unposted. This one does posts quite well. Love this nib. It's a number 8 size nib. It's a fine nib. They are now available in medium. I haven't got one. I'm hoping to do an order from AliExpress in the next few weeks. And what I'm planning on doing is maybe ordering a medium then. Another cartridge converter. There we go. Metal fitting, so again, not really suitable for eyedropping. This is just so nice to use. It's so nice to hold. Just too light. And again, we're talking about a fine nib. It writes really well. I've had no issues with writing. No hard starts, no skips. I can leave it a few weeks and it'll pick up and start writing. I know it's a blue pen and I had brown ink in there. I like to do that occasionally. Most of the time I try and match the pen body with my ink. But then occasionally I go mad and try something different. But for all these reasons, it came in at position number 5. When you consider though, the pen cost $12. It's a very, I'm going to say, inexpensive pen. It's not a cheap pen. I'm going to carry on using this. You know, I maybe just need to spend time getting used to the weight of it. But that's the Jinhao X159. Pen number 4. The Nahvalur Key West. This is the Las Coroladas. So it's beautiful material. It's got this gorgeous sparkliness to it. Hoping that will come over on the camera. I'm trying to angle it to the light. This one has got a broad nib on it, and it's a broad Nahvalur nib. So Nahvalur nibs, they say they make them in-house. To me, it's got a little bit of a pink tinge as well to the actual gold, but that could just be reflections. Very nice. Unposted, again, quite usable. Does post, sort of. Goes right onto the very end. But I put my fingers there, so it's only down that much, so it's not that tight on. I mean, it's not too bad. It doesn't come off. Just doesn't feel very secure, and does make it feel very, very long. But there, as you can see, the crook of my hand is actually moving the cap. In there, I had Diamine Deck of the Halls. Now, hopefully, we can catch this. Can you see we've got that little shimmer there? Yeah, certainly in the word Nahvalur, key. Down here where we've got the B, I had to put the B on the bottom line because there wasn't the room to put it on the top one. You know, I like this ink. Problem is, because it's got that shimmer in it, I think it was actually chameleon rather than shimmer. I do occasionally get flow issues. And that's because I think the shimmer is getting into the feed and blocking it. I mean, even now, after I've given it a really good clean, you can still see some of that shimmer on there. I think what I'm going to have to do is put this through the ultrasonic cleaner. Hopefully that'll get rid of any excess. You know, so what I'll do, I'm not going to do it now, obviously, pull out the nib and feed and put them into that ultrasonic cleaner, give it a really good deep clean. So this pen came in at position number 4. So that's the Nahvalur or Nahvalur Key West. Position number 3. Went to my most expensive pen that's been in use this month, and this is the Leonardo Momento Magico. I love the colour of this pen. It's so nice. It's unusual, isn't it? It's the colour, they call it meal, which translates to honey. You know, I can certainly see where it's getting that name from. This is a piston filling pen. There's no ink in it, so I'm quite happy to work the mechanism. Very smooth mechanism. Goes down quite nicely. And holds an awful lot of ink. And this is one of the nice things about this pen. I fill it, and normally it lasts me months. I like the ink window on here. It's nice and wide. I can see the ink level very easily. Again, I'm going to have to clean this out a little bit more. I thought I'd got it all out. Still got a bit of that orange. Hopefully you can maybe see the ink there. Or orange water. Downside with these pens, with piston pens, very difficult to clean out. Same with vacuum pens, really. I mean, I could disassemble it, but I really don't want to do that if I can avoid it. Does write nicely. It's a broad nib. Let's just move this up slightly so that's more central while we're talking about it. Yeah, it's a broad nib. I love this Diamine Blaze Orange in here. I think it looks really nice. I get nice shading from it. One thing I have noticed occasionally, and I'm talking maybe once every 3 or 4 pages, I do get a little bit of railroading on down lines, but I think that's more a case of me going and pressing maybe slightly too hard, because I do have a bit of a heavy hand. Still, nice pen, but you know, I've got the railroading issue. I've got the cleaning issue. I'm building all this in. It's nice. It's enjoyable. As I've shown you there, nice to use unposted. Another one will post. Doesn't feel as bad as the previous one, but does still feel long. But unposted, very nice. Nice width there as well, down there in the section. But I had to give a ranking, so I thought, you know, this has got to be number 3. Could easily have been number 1. The top 3, well, to be honest, all the pens, they are very, very close this month. So this was the Leonardo Momento Magico. Position number 2, I've given to the Nahvalur 365 from 2021. This is Cano Cristales. The material, beautiful. ever such a pretty pen to look at. And the material, it's Jonathan Brooks Primary Manipulation 3.5. Very, very nice. It's a Nautilus shape. Doesn't have the portos. It's got this little tiny ink window. That's one of the things I struggle with. Let me just fetch back the Magico for a second. There, I've lined the bottom of the ink windows up. So the Magico's ink window is about 3 times the size of the Nahvalur's. That's the biggest letdown of this pen for me, is this teeny tiny ink window. Makes it very difficult to see what the ink level is. I do struggle with this. Piston mechanism again. I know I've gone through this in a number of other videos, so I'm not going to talk about it other than mention the fact that when I was cleaning it, this actually came out and I haven't been able to get it back in properly. It's still sealed, it's still ink tight, so I don't have to worry about ink leaking. Just looks a mess. Once I've got this empty of ink, I'm going to watch a few videos and then I'm going to really see if I can give it a proper clean, a proper deep clean. You know, I might as well take it all apart and then see if I can get this to go back together again properly. The nib on here, it did have a medium narwhal nib. I've changed it. I've got a broad Yoho nib on here. Oh, it's absolutely beautiful. It's such a wet nib. As you can see here when I was doing my swipe tests. This one here, this was 2 minutes and it was still very wet. Downside of that, not very practical for taking notes. So to be honest, it's why it's coming in at position number 2. This is a bit of a niggle, but it's just the total wetness. Although I love it, I'm limited to using this really for titles rather than actually using this for actual writing my notes. The ink, hopefully you can see this, Colt Pen's Little Pip. It's got a purple colour to it, but then it goes pop and you get this absolutely gorgeous gold sheen coming through. Very, very nice. Love this ink. I say I tend to use this for titles. I think as a combo for titles, it's absolutely superb. But I had to rank it, so unfortunately it came in at position number 2. So that's the Nahvalur 365. So by default, that means position number 1. Let's move this down so we can get them all in again. It can only be one, and it's the Pilot E95S. Here we go. Love this pen. It's a pocket pen. Only had it since Christmas, so it's still a fairly new pen to me. You know, it's not really something you can use unposted, a little tiny thing. But once you post it, it's got a really nice length to it. It's well balanced in the hand, feels very comfortable. The nib, 14 karat gold. It's the only gold pen from this month's selection. Very nice nib. It's an inlaid nib there. Hopefully you can see that. Just going to try turning it around. Really nice. If I take the body off, body, it's so tiny, isn't it? It's a cartridge converter pen. I've got a cartridge in here. It does come with a converter, but when you've got a converter in, you can't actually see the ink level because all you can see is the actual twist mechanism sticking out here. The rest of it is in the pen. It's got a very deep body, you know, so we're talking 3/4 of that cartridge goes on in. All I do, you know, is I just refill this. I use a blunt nose syringe. I just refill this with the ink I want to use. And then, although you can't because it's empty, I can see my ink levels, which I really like. Comfortable to use. I've already showed you that. Very nice. I like this cap and this. I'm going to move this to the mic. Taking it off, putting it back on. Get that slight little tap when you put it back on. Otherwise, virtually silent. So this came in at position number 1. So that was the Pilot E95S. Let's turn over the page. So because this was a use me up month, the whole idea is, as it says, use up as many pens as I can, get them empty so I can clean them out and reduce the number of inked pens that I've got. The first one I brought in was the Magico M8 or the Moonman M8. Unusual looking pen. You know, $24. I thought it was actually not bad value. Again, fits nicely unposted. Doesn't really post. You can push it on a little bit like the Nahvalur Key West in that, but it's nice enough unposted. Cartridge converter pen. I've cleaned this out a number of times. I just cannot get rid of this purple staining. So what I need to do is, I think maybe even take apart the converter and put that through my ultrasonic. Hopefully that'll clean it off. I only got about 2 uses out of this. It's got a fine nib. Again, like most Mahjong pens, most of them seem to come with just a fine, sometimes an extra fine. Very occasionally a medium. The next pen to come in was the Diplomat Error. This is in the factory finish, so it's like raw aluminium. Very nice pen. Again, fits nice in the hand, unposted. Posts, maybe not as secure as some of the others, but you know, it will shake on. The cap pulls off. This is one of the issues I've got with it. I keep forgetting that, and I try unscrewing it. All I'm doing is I'm actually unscrewing the body. Here we've got the converter. Still got loads of ink in this. I actually did refill this with ink, with the exact same ink. Did that because I needed it for a couple of other videos I've got planned. Enjoyable pen. It's got a Diplomat nib. Made for them, I believe, by Yoho, but to Diplomat's specifications. Very nice, nice writer, broad nib. Writes really well. That one is still going strong and will be going forward to some future videos. Let me just straighten this up. I keep knocking it slightly off. There we go. Next pen we've got, Kaigloo 316A. Love this green colour. Slightly translucent, so I can actually see the converter through there. Doesn't bother me. I don't mind that. Got some nice colouring. You can see them hits of like white chatoyancy type there. Quite pretty. Duofold style pen. Nice fit in the hand. Section, very comfortable, not too thin. Cartridge converter. And this one came with a medium nib. Quite like this nib, very, very nice. It's very similar to my Jinhao 100s. I believe you may have already seen the video where I do actually compare these, the 316A and a 100. I think that comes out a few days before this video does. So hopefully you've seen that. Again, it's quite nice. This ink, Kobe number 60 Foreign Museum Mint. That's the only thing I'm not 100% certain of. I'm not saying I don't like it. It's just, it's a bit too bright for me. It was only a sample, so I don't have any more of the sample left. The Jinhao 88, this is in the red with these black, I'm going to call them pinstripes. Very thin pen. You know, I do find it very uncomfortable for anything more than a couple of lines. My fingers are really pressing against each other there where I'm holding the section. I do like the black and red. I think it goes really well together. Another one, cartridge converter. Once again, we've got a fine nib. I think this is a number 5 sized fine nib. Do you like that the nib's black, so it goes really well with the rest of the pen. The ink, Diamine Wild Strawberry. Hopefully, let me catch this for you. Nice, really bright red ink. But hopefully you see there we've got this nice gold sheen coming off it. Really attractive. I do like inks with a bit of sheen because I think it just adds character to the writing. But that was quite enjoyable to use. Only used it for a couple of days. Didn't even think about refilling it. You know, I only paid $8, but it's very thin. I will use it again in the future. Just not sure when yet. PenBBS 494 plastic pen. Feels cheap. You know, it was $8. It is cheap. Very thin again. For $8, it's what I expect. I'm not overly worried about that. Just feels thin. Bit too light for me. Well, a lot too light for me, to be honest. But that's a very personal thing. I like that it's a demonstrator. So you see there's still some ink in there. I love seeing the ink sloshing around. It's another fine nib. It still writes nicely. You know, although I'm complaining about the fine nibs, all of them are nice. None of them are really scratchy. Robertos de Rubin. Again, this was the last of a sample. Nice, bright. You know, I can see, yeah, it's heading towards a ruby coloured ink. For $8, I think it's well worth it. And it's a piston filler as well. You know, that was good value. My final pen, again $8. This is the Wing Sun 3013. Quite a chunky pen compared to the others. Fits extremely nicely in my hand, nice and comfortable to use. Again, we've got a number 5 size nib there. This one is actually a vacuum filler. You can't really see that because of the ink. And again, we've got this demonstrator so you can actually see the ink sloshing around. Not a lot of ink left in there, maybe another day's worth. Obviously, I'm not going to work the mechanism. I do leave this open just to make sure that I've got nothing blocking ink from flowing down into the section. The Herbin Eclat de Saphir, quite a nice ink. It's not one of my favourite purples. You know, I can see where they're saying Saphir, sapphire. I can see hints of purple coming through. I haven't tried this ink in a broad nib yet. Maybe that's something I need to do, and maybe that might make a bit of a difference. Again, fine nib. Writes quite nicely. It's comfortable to use. So of these pens, obviously my favourite by far is the Diplomat Error. That really jumps out at me. And then I would say we've got the Kaigaloo 316A. That would have been position number 2 between these pens. Let's swap on over. I'll fetch in all the pens for one final look. I've got so many pens this month, I can't even fit them all in the pen tray. So we've got the PenBBS 323, the Jinhao X159, the Nahvalur Key West, the Leonardo Momento Magico, the Nahvalur 365 from 2021, the Pilot E95S, the Moonman M8, Diplomat Error, Kaigaloo 316A, the Jinhao 88, PenBBS 494 and Wingsun 313. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. What are your thoughts on these pens? What are your thoughts on any similar pens? What are your thoughts on the pens that you've been using this month? Please drop a comment down below. Let's kickstart the conversation. Please hit the thumbs up button. Every time you like, every time you comment, just helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.